got scripture, you can pull it out, and if not, you can just listen. We're going to read the same scriptures that Naomi read for us earlier, but here is how we're going to do this. I'm going to read them from my phone here, and if you see in your worship guide, it says, I win. That stands for I wonder, I notice. Those of you who've been in Bible studies with me have done this before. As we read, you get to engage with the scripture and think about, what do you wonder when you read this, and what do you notice when you read this? We're not coming at it with answers, we're just observing and wondering. And here's what you get to do. You get to interrupt me as I'm reading with any phrase that begins with I wonder or I notice. We're just going to see where it goes. Those of you who've done it before, you can help lead the way. John 20, starting in verse 19. On the evening of that first day of the week, when the disciples were together, with the doors locked for fear of the Jewish leaders, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." I wonder how he did that. After he said this, he showed them his hands and his side. The disciples were overjoyed when they saw the Lord. Again, Jesus said, "Peace be with you. As the Father has sent me, I am sending you." And with that, he breathed on them. Say that again, Gail. You wonder where he's sending them. If you forgive anyone's sins, their sins are forgiven. If you do not forgive them, they are not forgiven.
I wonder how we do that.
How we do that. Now Thomas, also known as Didymus, I wonder what that means. One of the 12 was not with the disciples when Jesus came. There it is. Okay. So the other disciples told him, "We have seen the Lord." But he said to them, "Unless I see the nail marks in his hands, and put my finger where the nails were, and put my hand into his side, I will not believe." Hence the term doubting Thomas. You wonder about the wounds? Were they raw and sore and oozing? These are Gail's wonderings.
I wonder if Jesus flinched.
When he touched him? Mm-hmm.
Probably not. I wonder if he healed.
Did he heal? Yeah, I wonder.
I wonder why Thomas didn't believe what the disciples told him.
Yeah, why not? A week later, his disciples were in the house again, and Thomas was with them. Though the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." Then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here, see my hands. Reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting and believe." Thomas said to him, "My Lord and my God." Then Jesus told him, "Because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not." You notice that Thomas never touched Jesus. Because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed.
I wonder, does that mean us, people who have never seen Jesus?
I wonder.
I noticed the disciples were behind locked doors for a while. I wonder how long.
No, yeah. You notice that they were behind locked doors for a while, and you wonder how long. I'm just repeating for the microphone's sake. Anything else as we finish the story? Any other notices?
How fearful they were when he popped up out of nowhere.
Yeah, I wonder if they screamed.
I wonder what Mary Magdalene last week went to the disciples with the news. They never recovered.
wonder when they started calling Jesus Lord. I wonder if this was the first time anybody'd ever put it so clearly. Doubting Thomas, who maybe just made a really intense declaration. Anything else?
I wonder why he didn't see the wounds. Did Jesus look different?
You wonder if Jesus looked different. Like, why didn't they see the wounds from being like beaten up and stuff?
Why couldn't he just say, well, I see you. I mean, there you are.
Yeah, I wonder.
I wonder if there were rumors of the body being moved by something else, and so they're going, I don't actually see the body.
I wonder.
I wonder if I were Thomas, if I would have done the same.
Yeah. Anybody else?
I always wonder, what was Jesus' facial expression and the tone of his voice when he said a lot of stuff that he said, but like, was he slightly ironic? Did he have a slight smile on his face when he was saying this, or was he like really serious?
Mm-hmm. I wonder. Yeah.
Remember this back when he talked to Thomas and was doubting Thomas. He blessed everybody else who didn't have this.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if the women were there too.
If the women were in the locked room. Mm-hmm. I wonder. I'm not going to preach my sermon today, but I'm going to leave us with this story. I invite you over this next week to read these passages again and practice this activity again. Do your own I wonder, I notice. And then next week we'll talk about it. I was in a conversation this week with two people who do not know Scripture well. They don't claim to be Christians, although they're interested in Jesus and interested in Christianity, and they're still very much learning. And I was telling them about what I do, and that I'm preaching a sermon, and it's on this thing, and it's on doubting Thomas, and they're like, "Well, who's that?" And so I'm like telling them the story, and I'm like, "So Jesus shows up, and he's like, here, like put your fingers inside of the holes in my hand, and put your finger in my side." And one of them goes, "Oh my gosh! Did they do it? Did they actually touch it?" And I paused for a minute and I was like, I've never received that reaction in church before when we tell this story. Because, it is kind of disgusting, right? When you think about it. Especially if Gail's wondering were they oozy? Were they, what did those wounds look like? And I just realized, for someone who does not just readily accept this, I've been in church my entire life, right? I've known this story my entire life. This is kind of bizarre. It's really a bizarre story that we are proclaiming, not only on Easter Sunday, but even on this one, even this story of Thomas. And I had this moment of going with her, disgust. Oh my gosh. I asked myself, do I really believe this? She's right. It is weird. Do I really believe this? And some people might call that doubt. And we give Thomas a real bad rap for what we think was doubting. And I'm just not sure it's fair. That's all I'm going to give you this week. Read it yourself. Do your own I wonder, I notice. And let's talk about it with a sermon next Sunday.